This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. He goes to Gibbs wide. Edge of the box. Foley. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Arena! Gibbs wide. They've only gone and done it again. Forest back in the lead. Through Morgan Gibbs White. Oh, and he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic.
Hello and welcome to the fan preview here on Red Side of the Trent. Today I'm joined by Bennjamin Bloom of the Blue Monday podcast and Bennjamin Bloom footballing channel. Ben, how are you first of all?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, a bit all consumed by a game against Manchester United at the weekend, but now we can look forward to Forest.
Yeah, I mean, a fixture that used to happen quite frequently when we were both yielding in the Championship days where you lot were there for about a billion years. We kind of followed that and took that mantelpiece when you got relegated, and now we've kind of come back together where we maybe both belong. I'd say Ipswich with a massive history. Great couple of results for you guys. You must be absolutely buzzing at the moment.
Yeah, it's tricky to be buzzing when you're in the bottom three and you've only won one game out of 12. So it's one of those where the context is key, and we just seem to have had so many games where it's been, I think we did quite well there, but we didn't win. Essentially 11 of the 12 games we haven't won. There's only been a couple of the games, Everton at home, we were well beaten. West Ham away, we were well beaten. You factor in games against Liverpool and Man City. I know you guys beat Liverpool, didn't you? And we'll talk about this. You got past that vital season one, which gives you, it'd be fair, you beat them in season one, didn't you, as well? But you know what I'm saying? Up from League One and playing Liverpool on your first game, you're probably not going to beat them. But no, it's been a very good. We were hoping for back-to-back wins somewhere after the poor start, and it's been a very good little, 5 points in 3 games. But we're obviously very understanding of the fact that those little blobs of 5 points in 3 games need to repeat, a good number of times during the season if you're going to get to that sort of 35-point mark.
I guess though, like in retrospective, as like a fan who's not kind of following Ipswich, but when you look at the league table, you're right in the mix with like Wolves and Palace and Leicester, and you're not far away. So I guess from that point of view, you kind of can't be too downhearted about it all, and you must kind of have a lot of hope that you can still survive, obviously, this season, shortly, especially from what performances you must have put out, because you've been close in most of the games. Like you say, you lost 3 of them by decent scorelines.
Yeah, and that's the age-old conversation, isn't it? If there are people who just look at the league table, and we get very cross with those people because they miss out the nuance and the context of fine margins and things that could have gone your way that didn't, and et cetera, et cetera. But for all that we want to yell at the people who just look at the league table, at the end of the season, relegation will be decided just on the league table, and we just need to get above that line. And it's been an amazing couple of years of winning, but we're now used to keeping a good eye on what everyone else is doing and hoping that what's happened in the last 2 seasons, where we needed an obscene amount of points to get out of League One with 98 or something, wasn't it? And then we needed 96 to get out of the Championship against 3 of the greatest funded and highest point scoring parachute teams you've ever seen. We're all of a sudden thinking, is this going to be a high tide at the bottom of the Premier League and you're going to need more points than normal to stay up?
I mean, I think the narrative that the parachute payments, if you have them, you guarantee promotion, has really kind of been broken in the last 3 seasons. If you look at
can I just I'll step right back against that straight away. There isn't a narrative that parachute payments guarantee you promotion. That's not what me or anybody says.
This is, it kind of gives you an advantage. But what I'm trying to say is, like, as
it's not even the advantage, Adam. It's how it distorts and adds cliff edges. And it's the same with the Champions League money in the Premier League as opposed to the regular Premier League, etc., etc. It's just a massive distorting factor in a cliff edge that makes things very, very difficult. So you won't ever hear me saying parachute payments guarantee you promotion, but they do a hell of a lot of harm in terms of competitive sort of balance.
Yeah, definitely. But what I'd like to say is I think it's great that Forest, Ipswich and Luton, as much as Forest fans kind of despised Luton last season, I think it's great that three different kind of teams that didn't have those advantages given to them have kind of come into the Premier League and had a little bit of a freshness. But what was the expectations from Ipswich fans when you got back promotions? Because it was like 17 years in the Championship, and all of a sudden relegated down to League One, and it's kind of took that relegation to go to League One to then get out of the Championship and back into the promised land. I think you had similar time out as we did, like 22, 23 years. Am I right in saying that?
You are, yeah. It's difficult because if you ask me, and with the benefit of hindsight now, the expectations were probably a little bit too high, but it's kind of natural in terms of a team that's just been winning for 2 years. But I think probably what Forest fans can maybe empathise with a little bit is we've been away a long time. And those cliff edges I just mentioned in the game now with the money distribution, you're just starting to learn now that if you're out of the Premier League for any length of time and Bournemouth or Nottingham Forest or Fulham or Wolves are in it for more than 2 years, they are light years ahead of where anyone else who's coming up could possibly be, unless, you know, it's a type of Fulham type situation where they basically, I think, had a £90 million wage bill in the Championship, and they basically kept Premier League funding and managed to bounce straight back before FFP would have, you know, really, really had teeth on them. So the expectations were kind of, a lot of people saying, oh, they're playing good football, they've got good momentum. There was an idea that Leicester were going to get a points deduction and that was someone to tick off, and Southampton were going to struggle a bit. And then you were looking to find, will there be even a Forest who finished 17th last year, will Forest drop off? Will Bournemouth drop off? Will Wolves drop off? Will Brentford drop off? And unfortunately, we've found the harsh truth about the just the quality that the Premier League teams have got. And you even look on the bench and, you know, it's just 6 players that would get in your first team just straight away. And unfortunately for the teams that have come up, Brentford are good, Forest are good, Fulham are good, Bournemouth are good, and it's only really Wolves and Palace, I guess, that have dropped down, and there's still a sense that they could mobilise.
Yeah, well, you look at the results at the weekend. Wolves dismantled Fulham, Wolves have been struggling all season, and you got a £50 million striker scoring 2 goals for Wolves, who are languishing just above yourselves.
Could do with him leaving in January, Adam.
I know. Couldn't we all? It's interesting you say that, because I've obviously the media kind of and obviously football fans who are involved in YouTube channels and kind of media in that sense were like really tipping Ipswich to do well. And I think the viral goal of Wes Burns bending one with the outside of his boot, where it was like scintillating football from back to front, and that goal kind of went viral. And I think people kind of took that and said, like, well, Ipswich could be a real breath of fresh air. But for anyone, especially myself, because I'm going to admit I haven't watched a terrible amount of Ipswich. I've watched yourselves against Liverpool and then any match of the day highlights. What kind of style would you say Ipswich tend to play? And has Kieran McKenna actually adapted his styles, would you say, so far this season in the Premier League as well to what you have been used to seeing the last 2 seasons?
Oh, McKenna always adapts. Yeah, even in League One, when, and you know, we hold our hands up. You know, we were the rich club in League One. We had more money than everybody else. So, but even then, he had to realise that you got to run. You got to go back to front sometimes when you're playing away at Burton in the rain. You're not going to knock it across the back 4, and you've got to defend some corners and whatnot. So he developed in League One to understand that hybrid style, and then when it got into the sort of, I don't know, February, March time, just went on a mad run. In the Championship, they were very brave and stuck to it a lot. And for the most part, it worked pretty well. There was some tension in the last couple of months of the season, whether that was McKenna adapting to the league or adapting to the fact that he was just in the most brutal promotion race the Championship has ever seen. And there was a few games clinging on and, just getting the job done. But no, he's a smart fella, as the football world is starting to understand. So obviously controlling every game in League One, and honestly, the majority of them in the Championship, you're probably going to control very few in the Premier League. And what we're finding is that now we control little periods of games, and even against Manchester United yesterday, as we're recording now, there was 25, 30 minutes in the first half where Ipswich were in control. Probably weren't in control in the second half, but they seem to be adapting fairly well. And what they've done, and Forest have got this in spades, I tell you, Premier League physicality, they've done really well to add in, Liam Delap with his power and the kind of technical level of an Amari Hutchinson. Even Jens Kajust, who's coming in midfield, has got that physicality. O'Shea and Tuan Zabi at the back have got that Premier League experience as well. So there's no massive... I don't think it's as simple as people make it of, if you pass the ball at the back in the Championship, you should immediately stop doing that in the Premier League. It's not. It's a bit reductive. I feel a bit sorry for the Southampton fans who keep having to hear that, because you're going to immediately change your tactics wholesale. But no, there's a slight switch to be able to counter attack, and obviously, and if you have a manager like Nuno, you have to be good at being without the ball for 20 minutes and be able to absorb the pressure of these brilliant Premier League players.
I mean, it's funny that you touched on Southampton there, and the differences I've seen between yourselves and Ipswich, where Southampton passed the ball it almost looks like they're stat padding, whereas I think Ipswich kind of passed the ball out from the back with some sort of purpose and kind of forward thinking in that manner. That's how I see it anyway when I've watched any glimpses of a Kieran McKenna side, and I think he's... I did want to ask you actually just off the cuff, do you worry about, regardless whether you stay up or go down, of keeping McKenna? Because obviously he was linked heavily to a few clubs last season. I think Leicester was even involved in that, but there was obviously the kind of cloud of the points deduction there. But he chose to stay, and I think that's pretty good of him, and he must be well loved in East Anglia.
Oh, massively. Yeah, it was Brighton that was the problem.
Brighton, that was it. Sorry, before Hertzler won it. Yes,
in the summer. Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
Regardless whether you stay up or go down, do you worry about keeping him or not?
No, you can't worry about it really, because football fans are very good at being very emotionally fragile, and you can't sit there as a football fan and say, we think this guy's really good, the best manager we've had in decades, and then assume in a world where I've just said 5 minutes ago in the conversation where there's massive levels that he's just going to stay at Ipswich his entire career. If he's as good as we say he is, he's not. He's going to go somewhere bigger than us, and that's the deal. And I dare say in yours and my lifetime for Ipswich, that will probably always be the deal. There'll always be a Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, etc. level that is, unless, Ipswich are in the Premier League now for 2 decades and continuously finish in the top 6, which is unlikely to happen, frankly, then, a good manager at a club of my team's size will always move on to something bigger. You just got to... what we really hope, I think, what I hope, I'll talk for myself, is that when McKenna does leave, that I hope we're still in the Premier League and he can leave a football club that was languishing in League One with new ownership, with a club that's been in receipt of Premier League TV money, with assets in the squad that put them in that top Premier League level. That's all you can hope, but you can't worry about him leaving because, as I say, you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. You can't be the best thing since sliced bread and then, not be likely to go and do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to have his name thrown in the hat when Steve Cooper actually got sacked. I mean, I really liked what I was seeing at Ipswich when I saw bits and bobs, as I said. People will point out Liam Delap as your main key player, Ben. having scored 6 goals so far this season, and kind of line up the Premier League a little bit from that respect after I don't want to say a sticky spell at Hull, but it wasn't one where you go, oh, he's an amazing player because he scored 10 goals if that. I mean, I was quite surprised that Ipswich went and got Liam Delap, especially for £20 million, I think it is, with City having a buyback or whatever. How good has he been? And also, has there been anyone else that's maybe gone a little bit under the radar, you'd say?
Delap's been brilliant, and I think what it speaks of is sticking the right player into the right system at the right time, frankly. And Hull under Liam Rossini were a kind of slow build-up team where you've got this absolute physical monster up front who can just run defenders and beat up on centre-backs, and you're kind of playing very slowly through the third. So, yeah, and I think he was at Preston and Stoke before that. And never really clicked in the Championship. But when Ipswich played Hull last season, and this is where McKenna's clever, he was already kind of bigging up Liam Delap in his post-match and saying how he'd chosen to deal with him. So I think Liam Delap's been on Kieran McKenna's menu for a long time to do this specific, one up front role, which is very different to, say, what a Chris Wood would do, where he's a penalty box, finish the chances. This is a lead the press, go and run people ragged type role, which he's perfect for, because, as I say, physically he's just very good.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that you would kind of highlight as having a good season so far for Ipswich as well?
We're very hopeful that Leif Davis can continue to produce what he's done in the other two divisions that he's played for us in, because he's just been absolutely amazing, and the team's set up basically to go lopsided, and so the left back can be basically on the left wing most of the time. Hutchinson was a kind of a big hope. He was on loan last season. As Forest fans will know only too well, if you get promoted with loan players who are your star players, immediately the second you get promoted, you either have to spend a load of money or you have a worse team than you had when you were promoted. So they had to go back and get Hutchinson, and he's now starting to tick. And Sam Morsey, I guess, is just a ridiculous story when everyone thought he was just a jobbing Championship midfielder, and here he is looking like a quarterback in League One, the Championship, and now doing it in the Premier League as well. So there's some great stories in there, and you're going into a game with Man United yesterday with Cameron Burgess, who you signed from Accrington Stanley, and Wes Burns, who you signed from Fleetwood. So it's brilliant, some of the players that have come up through from League One.
Yeah, I credit Ipswich and some of the players that come up similar to the Luton kind of story with like Pele, Ruddock and Panzo, isn't it, in that sense, where they've played throughout the whole leagues. For anyone that's listening from our point of view, like who listens to our pod on a regular and hasn't watched Ben's channel, he's been very, very good and very kind in his words about Forest in the past. I've watched a few videos, Ben, but how would you rate Forest this season of what you've seen? Because obviously in the past you've been really, really nice. This season we've started off pretty well. Obviously the last 2 games not been so good, but how would you see it from an Ipswich point of view?
I'd like to say now I'm not just being nice. I just try and tell the truth and give my honest opinion. Obviously, there's a couple of things that make me particularly like Forest. One is obviously Brian Clough, and I met him when I was a young kid, and this just became this kind of heroic football figure. And when I understood who he actually was, when I met him when I was a kid, I've always kind of loved him. And then you realise the link. And even when you go to Forest now and they play that video before the games, you get a little bit of a sense of this, in terms of English football, maybe over 100 years or whatever. You'd say the top figures, your Hall of Fame, Brian Clough is in the conversation, isn't he? So I've always liked that. And in the Championship, I just thought it was an amazing story. Chris Hughton out and Steve Cooper in, and the charge up the table. Yes, the doors opened up and To mention the parachute payments again, Norwich and Watford, I think it was that season, was it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, stank it out and left the gap open. I think it was that season. I can't remember anyway.
West Brom were definitely one team, I believe, as well.
Yeah, the doors opened up and Steve Cooper just drove a train through them. So, yeah, and this season, you've got to say Forest have been superb, haven't they? When you think of the ceiling, really, and me talking about Big Six and, cliff edges and glass ceilings. And yeah, okay, I get it when people say Forest, if you look at who they've beaten and the run of the fixtures, make that argument. But, they drew at Chelsea and they won at Liverpool and drew at Brighton as well. So Forest have been excellent. And I think all you can do when you're a team coming up from the EFL in the Premier League is just punch your weight. If you've got to go to Southampton, go and beat them. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to get a run of Palace, Leicester and West Ham in a row, win all three of the games. And okay, it's now, back-to-back defeats. And I can see Man City, Man United and Villa coming up as well. So the fixtures are getting tricky, which is why I'm sure Forest fans will have Ipswich at home circled on the list for 3 points, right? But no, Forest have been excellent. It's really lovely to... game against Arsenal, it was 4th against 5th, wasn't it? Which I thought was brilliant.
I mean, I think Forest fans and Ipswich fans, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think this might be the case there. Forest have seen Ipswich's last 2 results and will say, well, hang on, they're not actually they're not a pushover. Look at your results and say you drew to Villa at home, you've drew to Man United, you've beaten Spurs. Yes, you had sticky games against Man City and West Ham and Liverpool. They're to be kind of expected, especially 2 out of the 3. I think West Ham are a bit of a weird team, to be honest. And then equally, Ipswich will look at Forest's last 2 results, and I still don't think either set of fans will go, this is going to be an easy game.
I mean, I don't think we're going into any game thinking it's going to be an easy game this season. And, we had Leicester at home. You're kind of looking at Leicester at home and Southampton at home, the teams you came up with. And, never want to be that guy that's whining and crybaby about referees and VAR calls. But bit of an odd call in that game to, not look at a penalty and then Calvin Phillips immediately gets sent off and you get a 95th minute equaliser scored against you while you've got 10 men. So very frustrating draw against Leicester in that respect. But I think the problem I've got with playing Forest is it's the sort of team that we can struggle against in respects of that, Forest are very sturdy and hard to play against and hard to score against. And almost Ipswich would prefer a more, kind of open game. And Nuno, when he's been at his best, particularly in the Wolves days, it was very solid and difficult to play against, and then they'd punish you. And obviously with Word and Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi, it's what Forest have been doing well this season, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just going to put a team up that I think might start against Ipswich on the screen. So for any audio listeners, I've put Sells, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, Alex Moreno at the back, Yates and Dominguez in the midfield, Jota Silva coming in for Elanga, Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood. Hoping Gibbs White is back in the team because he got left out at the weekend. I think there's a bit of a conspiracy that Nuno maybe kind of chance the game of not playing him and Anderson to give them extra time for this one, Ben. Where do you kind of see Ipswich getting any joy in that team? And also, who do you kind of look and go, I'm not looking forward to seeing them against Ipswich?
Well, we could have done with you selling at least one of those centre-backs in the summer. But no, they're very, very good centre-backs. And look, obviously, I cover the Championship on the Bennjamin Bloom football channel. And Gibbs White, when he was down there, was just a rock star, wasn't he, for Sheffield United on loan. So he's a great player. And we're very familiar with Mr. Chris Wood because he was actually on loan at Ipswich for a short period, way back in history. But you don't want to go down this route, Adam, because any game where you do that this season, you put the lineup up, the lineup will have more expensive players and better players than Ipswich have got. So you do every week, Southampton, Leicester, maybe a bit more equal, but everyone else has got better players than Ipswich. So we just hope it's the pattern of play is where maybe you can get a Forest. Hopefully we can contain set plays, contain the physicality, but we're a brave team. We play 1v1s, and you can score against us. And if you've got people like Gibbs White in there, then we just need to try and get some control of the game. And I talk about those periods, whether that's possible, particularly at the City Ground. I know you've skewed pretty good away from home, actually, Forest, this season, haven't you? But
yeah,
it's really difficult. But we're saying the same thing every week. It's like you're playing in the FA Cup third round every week, isn't it? You hope everything lines up. Yeah, you get a bit of luck. You guys don't play well. Maybe you get a referee decision go your way rather than go against you. And you hope your players have a good game. And with McKenna in the dugout, there's always a plan and there's always a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you in terms of styles there. I wouldn't want Forest to go. I mean, I want us to go out against Ipswich and kind of go on the front foot. But equally, I am very aware of what you can do when you've got space to play in. And I think I said at the start of the season, although I tipped Ipswich to go down because of, like you've mentioned quite a lot here, the quality of player. But I also thought you'd have a right good go and a better go than the other two, purely because you've been together for so long. And even like Hutchinson, who's only assigned this season permanently, he was there last season and kind of fits into that ethos. Like you say, Liam Delap fits into it. Sammy Smodux has done well since he's come in from Blackburn. And then you've got the kind of the stalwart of the team in terms of Sam Morsey, who's been there what seems like for a fair few years and is the captain, played for Egypt, played in the AFCON with Mo Salah and has got bags and bags of experience. So I'm in agreement with you there in that sense. I do, however, seen you this season where you can concede a lot of goals, especially from the press against Brentford. I mean, I've never seen such craziness in my life. Arto Muric will be getting a well-received welcome, I guess, back to the City Ground after his terrible spell. I mean, do you worry about him in goal, by the way? Because he looks like a good shot stopper, but then when he gets the ball with his feet, he looks very worrying. I'm not going to lie.
No, I don't really. So I know he had a loan spell at Forest that didn't go well. So maybe you've got that in your head. But that was as a good. What was that? 6 years? 6 years ago when he was a very young keeper from Man City. Look, there's been a couple of teething problems, but I think what you have to remember with players coming into these teams that are, coming up from the EFL is how hard it is. And you rarely have the ball and you rarely win. And it's difficult to look good, at times. And okay, Muric might have had 1 or 2 goals this season that have, you can kind of say, oh, it's your fault. But we had the same with Václav Hladký last season, where you just have to work through it. And, if there's a mistake, you keep going. And in the end, the benefits of the keeper being able to join up and be an extra kind of passing figure, in that pattern of play when you're trying to work space at the back will outweigh, hopefully, what is just the odd goal that you concede. We should say about Muric as well, the 0-0 draw against Brighton is 4-0 unless he plays a blinder. So, it swings and roundabouts, but it's very easy with goalkeepers to I always think it's the hardest position on the pitch for us fans to kind of understand and kind of get our heads around, because there's only 2 of them and it's so kind of unique. I'm not too worried about him.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. In all honesty, I'm just going to bang your team up quickly, Ben. I know you're tight for time, but yesterday the team you played yesterday against Manchester United. So I'll just read out for the audio listeners who didn't watch the game or haven't took it in. Muric in goal, Twanzebe, O'Shea, Burgess, Davis at the back, Sam Morsey. I might be butchering this. Cajuste. How do you say his name, Ben?
Oh, mate, I'm not. One of my pet hates people moaning about pronunciation. Just do your best and accept that we're all trying our hardest with multilingual names.
And then the British front four of and Republic of Ireland, I guess, in Wes Burns, Amari Hutchinson, Sammy Smodux and Liam Delap up top. Do you expect this team to stay the same for the coming Saturday, or is it kind of touch and go depending on what happens? Obviously, I know we're recording this on a Monday, so it might be difficult to say if there was any knocks in the Man United game. Would you think that would be the same sort of side you will go with?
I'd imagine it'll be similar. You have to factor in that it's a very rare Premier League 3-game week coming up. Although we discussed this on Blue Monday, where you're kind of in the Premier League when you're Ipswich, you're not rotating, you're just trying to get your best team out that you possibly can. So there's a chance Calvin Phillips might come back in for Cajuste if he's fit. I think if Jacob Greaves is fit, he might come back in for Cameron Burgess at the back. But let's be honest, it's been 2 decent performances against Spurs and against Man United. So I think it will be the majority of that team, and then fitness will kind of tell with a couple of other sort of areas. Raise this now. Not that I want it to happen, but George Hurst is out for a while now, so it is literally Liam Delap in terms of the hard running number 9. I know Sammy Smodux could go and do that position, but the drop off to poor old Ali Al Hamadi, who kind of came in from Wimbledon and barely played in the Championship, is a fairly big one. So I think it'll be a very similar team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put fear into any Ipswich fans, but if Calvin Phillips plays, he has a tendency to get sent off against us, which is obviously a delight for us if he plays, and kind of stink up the gaff. But I don't want to tempt fate here either. Ben, obviously, I know you're tight for time and you need to go. Score prediction, please, for Saturday if you do one.
Oh, I haven't thought about it. We need to win games, but you're going away to Forest, who have started well and are high up in the league and who are going to have this one circled. I'd love if we could take a point. It's going to be very, very difficult. And join us on the Bennjamin Bloom football channel on Wednesday for my score prediction.
Brilliant plug there. Plug for Blue Monday as well, Ben. Are you on Spotify and YouTube and everything?
Yeah, and what Forest fans might enjoy as well in the week's build-up, we have Blue Monday Rewind, which we'll talk about. You'll hear a mention for Brian Roy and for Stan Collymore, and a Stuart Pearce indirect free kick as well in some Premier League games gone by. We'll have the predictions, obviously, with me and Mikey up on Wednesday. That'll go down my channel and Blue Monday as well. Full match preview on Thursday. And feel free, Forest fans, if you're going to be a prick in the comments and, troll, then don't come, frankly, and just go out, take a walk, and don't have a mobile phone with you, and think about your life choices if you find that fun. But if you want to come and try and add to the conversation like an adult human being, come and join us in the either of the live shows on Thursday and Sunday. We'll have the flagship reviewing the game. And I'm not being funny. We genuinely love to hear from opposition fans, as long as they're not that type of fan.
Yeah, I think most people will be pretty level-headed and kind, I hope. I'm wondering how long it will take before the McGugan free kick is plastered all over
what
social
a goal
media.
that was. Do you know what? My mate is sat behind that, and he said, I love that goal and I hate that goal, because he was on Sky Sports like a million times. And unfortunately, the Rewind show only focuses on Premier League meetings, of which there haven't been many. Because I also remember there was a game where we basically checked out and you needed to stay up, maybe 2016, 2017 or something around there.
In the Championship.
Chris Cohen smashed one in. Is that?
Yeah. Well, Jordan Smith, who was like our third choice keeper at the time, pulled off an unbelievable save from, I want to say Tom Lawrence, but I might be wrong in that sense.
No, you might be right, actually.
Yeah, and I remember he kept it 0-0, and then thankfully Forest went on to win the game pretty comfortably and stay up. But yeah, it was. I mean, that
dark days for both of us.
Oh yeah, but that could have been the turning point. I mean, I mean, the years you had with Mick McCarthy battering on the door of playoffs and not getting up.
We weren't battering on the doors of the playoffs. We were in there once.
In all the goals. Daryl Murphy,
mate, look back. It was one season and a lot of mediocrity, basically. To be fair to Mick, I think we finished 7th the next season, but it was quite a big points differential. Yeah. And yes, but let's not go into good old Mick papering over the cracks of a very bad absentee owner, because I know Forest have had some wrong owners in recent times.
I mean, both supporters have suffered a lot, and now we're both meeting in a Premier League fixture in the 21st century, and that is lovely to see, especially with the histories. Obviously, Bobby Robson, Alf Ramsey being at Ipswich, Ed Sheeran, and the most important person. And if you don't know this person on TikTok, Nick Muller, the Mustard Man, who is absolutely brilliant from an ironic point of view. Ben, thank you very much for joining us on Red Side of the Trent. Everyone, if you tune in on Sunday for the match review, hopefully 3 points for Forest. Sorry, Ben. But until next time, come on, you Reds.